We're just beginning on this journey. So I'm going to kind of talk to you from the beginner's perspective. And I did bring with me one of our technical people that I may need to defer to if you have any further questions about that. What I'm here to talk about was our very first big adventure in video conferencing. We set up a simultaneous learning event for 3 agencies. We originated a lecture at East Bay Mud, and we tapped into Metropolitan Water and San Francisco PUC and delivered that. And we delivered it for contact hours. That was a really big deal for us. We're trying to save time and money for our operators traveling. Our goal was cost saving. The video conferencing is new to us. We just acquired our equipment at the end of last year and have finally gotten it operational in the last couple of months. We have very limited experience with multi-agency connections. We've done some meetings now, but this was our first training experience that we did. And as I said, we originated this 1-hour presentation on water quality last month. Because we were talking to other agencies whose technology is a little different, we had to go through a bridging service, a video bridging service, to connect the different agencies. And I'll talk more about that in a moment when I go to lessons learned. We also had to coordinate with Department of Health Services, California DHOS, to be sure that everybody at each location was meeting the requirements so that they could collect their contact hours for this training. That might be something that you guys are really familiar with, but it was all kind of new and scary to us. We didn't know whether that was going to be possible, and they said, oh yeah, sure, you know, you'll see your participants, you'll know whether they're there for the entire duration of your training, and if they sign in and sign out on this consistent sign-in sheet. So that made us all very happy. That means we can train our people up at Pardee on these video conferencing, using this system. All right. The technology is absolutely fundamental. It was the foundation for everything we did. We acquired our system a little bit in a rush. All of a sudden, there was some money, and we said, one of our senior managers said, we really want this. Here's your budget. Go get it. We didn't know what we didn't know when we started. I saw the questions that came in about video conferencing, and people wanted recommendations on specific equipment to purchase. I can't tell you that. You have to figure out what you want to do, what you want it to look like, and how much money you've got. All these systems have pros and cons, upsides, downsides. Do you want a really clear image? Are you willing to settle for something that's a little more degraded, herky-jerky, to save perhaps a lot of money? You are going to have to make those choices. But when you go to plan your specific events, understand the capabilities and the limitations of these systems. One of the things we recently discovered, we had a big meeting. We were connecting to our remote location at Pardee, 90 miles away, and our video screens are, Tom, what are the dimensions?
I'm afraid to tell. Comparison. 40-inch screens for content and 40-inch screen for a presenter.
Right. So we have 2 40-inch screens. We have a room with 50 people in it. They cannot see those screens. We had the technical setup, but we didn't think about what their needs were going to be, how they were going to set up the room. We walked in, we saw this wasn't going to work. We weren't ready to do alternatives. We ended up having to send the handouts up to them electronically, and they Xeroxed them. They followed along on pieces of paper. Not a bad solution, you know. Ed was talking about being prepared. Right? And then we ended up hooking up to a big projector so that the folks in our room could see it. The day that we did our 3-way video conference, San Francisco could not see the content. They saw the presenter fine. We had sent them the PowerPoint slides in advance, so they had that as a backup. Audio, you may need to link by an audio line. You may need to have a telephone, so having a regular telephone teleconference system available as a backup. Know what your limitations are, know what your backup systems are. The third-party bridge just was one more thing to test. That was something we all had to get used to, and I think that's why San Francisco couldn't see the visuals, was because they were going through that bridge and they weren't set up to do that. Testing all the systems together in advance. We had a dry run. It all worked fine. We set it all up 15 minutes in advance because, of course, you're paying this video bridge. They'll let you go on 15 minutes before your event. We set it all up, and it took us a little longer to get going. As I said, prepare for your hiccups. The next thing is that all of this stuff is really based on the humans that are doing it. You're planning everything you can do to plan in advance. That upfront communication is not just for the techies. Our technical support staff were really helpful. They were there, they understood, they were going to have to troubleshoot, they were going to have to make this work for us. They were all willing and able to do all of that. But I didn't take into consideration that my presenter was not familiar with the technology. He's an experienced presenter, but Cheryl will attest to the fact that San Francisco saw the side of his head a lot because he didn't engage with that particular audience. They were right there in front of him. He could have talked directly to them, but he didn't. Planning for interaction, some of our participants said it was a lecture. We had a hard time hanging on to that information. We could have paused, interacted with people in the room. We had a big crowd at East Bay Mud. We had about 20 folks. There were 4 at Metropolitan Water and maybe 5 or 6 down on the San Francisco site. That all would have been really easy. The room setups should facilitate that multi-directional communication. On our end, we had the video screens right there so that the presenter could have talked directly to the remote audiences, but we couldn't see the people very well at one of the sites because they were way far away from us. And finally, I just say, brief your audience. Let the audience know if they're not experienced with this technology. Let them know in advance what they should expect and how they can facilitate this learning for themselves as well as others.